Let us step into a room where history seems to hold its breath. The year is 91 CE, in the very heart of Rome. The cheers from the streets have faded. The wedding garlands are already wilting. Now, a young woman stands alone inside a silent chamber, surrounded not by family or friends, but by witnesses. What is about to happen to her is a sacred ritual, a legal necessity, and a secret so disturbing that the empire itself would later attempt to erase every trace of it from memory. A carefully engineered procedure designed not for the bride, but for the state. This is not a story of love. It is not a celebration. On this channel, we journey into the forgotten corners of history. This is the story of the Roman wedding night. Today, we cross one of Rome's final forbidden thresholds to uncover the truth it tried to bury. To understand the shock of what happens in that private chamber, we must first dismantle the beautiful public illusion that surrounds it. Imagine the scene earlier that same day. Julia Antonia, perhaps only 14 or 15 years old, is presented as the image of perfect Roman devotion. Her hair has been parted using a ceremonial iron spearhead, a relic drawn from Rome's mythical past. It symbolizes the ancient capture of brides during wartime, a chilling metaphor, one she likely does not yet understand. Her hair is then woven into 6 tight braids bound with white wool, a complex style that takes hours to complete and marks her irreversible transition into womanhood. Over her head, she wears the flammeum, the flame-colored veil. This veil is not meant to inspire modesty, but to hide the fear in her eyes from envious spirits. Romans believed happiness attracted danger. The procession to her husband's home is loud and chaotic. Crowds fill the streets, shouting crude, sexually explicit verses meant to invoke fertility through vulgarity. Nuts are thrown at her feet, symbols of abundance that feel more like stones. She is lifted and carried across the threshold, not for romance, but because an ancient superstition warned that stumbling would curse the marriage. Every detail of this pageantry serves a purpose. It publicly announces a legal transformation. It also echoes a darker era when brides were seized and consent was irrelevant. The true heart of the ceremony is the signing of the tabulae nuptiales, the marriage contracts. These are not love letters. They are cold, transactional documents listing the dowry, land, money, slaves, and assets that Julia's father transfers to her husband, Marcus. Her body, and its ability to produce heirs, is the most valuable unspoken clause. In Roman law, for most of its history, a woman was a lione iuris, under another's authority. She passed from the manus, the legal hand of her father, into the manus of her husband. Even the word for marriage, conventio in manum, means coming into the hand. She was, in the eyes of the law, a transferred asset. Her primary purpose was clear: to produce legitimate male heirs in a society obsessed with bloodlines, inheritance, and purity. Paternity was everything. Uncertainty threatened the entire social and economic order. In Rome, a civilization of engineers, lawyers, and administrators responded as it always did. It designed a system. The principles of commerce were applied to marriage, inspection, witnessing, documentation, notarization. Think of it as the most important audit of a Roman man's life. You would never buy a prized horse without inspecting its body and lineage. You would never purchase land without surveyors and scribes recording every detail in front of witnesses. The bride was the asset. Her virginity was the warranty. The wedding night was the quality control inspection. The pronuba, the physician, and the witnesses were the official auditors. Their testimony would become unchallengeable evidence in any future inheritance dispute. With this bleak logic in mind, the door of the house closes. The obscene songs outside are muffled. Julia now stands inside the atrium. The air is heavy with incense and expectation. The celebration is over. The procedure is about to begin. She is not alone. Waiting inside are several figures: an older man carrying a leather bag, a physician, female slaves holding cloths and basins, and the pronuba, a married woman whose role is not comforting but judicial. She is not there to support Julia. She is there to supervise the process. Then Julia notices something in the corner. A tall object, nearly 4 feet high, draped in dark cloth. It does not move. The pronuba's grip tightens around Julia's arm. Her voice is firm, unyielding. You must seek his blessing for the fertility of your union. The cloth is pulled away. Revealed beneath it stands a wooden effigy, carved with disturbing anatomical precision. This is Mutinous Tutunus, a god of fertility, thresholds, and marital penetration. This is not a small household charm. It is life-sized, purpose-built, terrifying. Many modern historians have tried to soften this moment. They suggest symbolism, harmless gesture, that the bride merely sat on the statue's lap. But the ancient sources that mention it are explicit and appalled. Writing centuries later, the Christian theologian Augustine describes it with open contempt, stating that Roman brides were made to sit upon the member of mutinous. The Latin verb he uses means to mount, to occupy. It is not ambiguous. Another writer, Arnobius, describes it as a disgraceful ceremony in which the bride was placed upon the god. Its obscene form. These accusations are too specific to be inventions. Christian critics weaponized a truth that still haunted Roman memory. The ritual was real. It was physical. Religiously, its purpose was to invoke fertility and prepare the bride legally and psychologically. Its function was far darker. It was conditioning, submission made visible. For a sheltered young girl, the wedding night represented terror and resistance. Resistance was a legal problem. The ritual with Mutinous Tutunus was a rehearsed breaking point. A bride who froze or fought could prevent consummation, validating the contract. A controlled act meant to shatter hesitation and demonstrate that her body now belonged to authority and ritual command. It was desensitization, performed before witnesses. The pressure was absolute. Refusal meant disgrace, annulment, and social destruction. Piota's duty to family and tradition crushed individual will. Under the Pronuba's direction, Julia complied. This is where our world and theirs fully separate. We see violation. They saw necessity. Afterward, Julia is washed. The scented water purifies her ritually, but also physically. She is being prepared for the next examiner. That was the baseline record. Now comes the follow-up inspection. The physician is a quality control inspector. Before the wedding, a midwife had examined Julia and attested to her virginity. Has the first stage been completed correctly? Is the asset in the expected condition? There is no concern for her emotional state, only conformity. Then comes the central verification. Julia is led to the cubiculum, the bedroom. The door is left open. Lamps are lit to ensure visibility. Marcus enters. He too is performing a role, not intimacy. Duty. The Pronuba speaks formally. Let the marriage be sealed according to the law of Rome and the custom of our ancestors. And let the witnesses observe. What follows is consummation, not as intimacy, but as legal procedure. Her words could determine the fate of estates and bloodlines. At dawn, the process concludes. The physician returns for a final examination. This is the ultimate audit, confirms that consummation occurred. Transaction is now irreversible. His report, combined with testimony and contracts, forms the unassailable legal dossier of the marriage. Only now is Julia officially a Roman wife. She would live, bear children, manage a household, earn respect as a matrona. But what did she carry inside her? Maybe we'll never know. And that silence may be the greatest tragedy. No Roman woman of status wrote of this night. No man recorded his thoughts. These rituals were plumbing essential, hidden, never discussed. Our knowledge comes in fragments, hostile Christian accounts, cold legal texts, clinical medical descriptions, archaeological hints, small phallic charms found in shrines, suggesting how widespread the cult once was. The system worked perfectly for those in power, guaranteed stability and inheritance. The emotional cost to women was never recorded. It ended not through reform, but revolution. Christianity brought a worldview toxic to these rituals. It declared women spiritually equal. Marriage became sacred union, not contract. Privacy and modesty replaced inspection. The old rites were condemned, erased, destroyed, statues were smashed. Texts were not copied, memory faded. Rome gave us law and engineering, yet institutionalized trauma. Brilliance and brutality coexisted. This story matters because it breaks the myth of moral progress. It forces a question. What systems do we accept today because they seem logical while ignoring their human cost? Finally, it reminds us that history is written by power, Women like Julia were erased. Recovering their story is an act of justice. The Roman wedding night was control, disguised as tradition, enforced by law, sanctified by religion, and in that silence, it speaks. It was erased not by remorse, but by replacement. If this journey unsettled you, it has done its job. About power, memory, and how thin the line is between civilization and cruelty. If you want us to continue uncovering histories like this, support the channel and tell us what uncomfortable past should we bring into the light next.